So what is the key difference between a leader and a manager?
One is human, the other is a robot. Because you think about it, an app could probably manage better than you, or AI could manage things, organize things. But a leader is somebody who does just that, leads. A leader is somebody who is willing to sacrifice their own personal comforts um, in the interests of the group, in the interests of the community. And what that means is that sometimes you stay longer than you have to.
Hello everyone, how you all doing? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Malizu Joy Adako. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day, also an amazing day. If you're new, do not forget to click on the subscribe button below. To my returning subscribers, I'm always grateful. This is the Flow with Joy segment. I have a guest on today's show. His name is Femi Oblong Daniels. But before we proceed, I would love to ask my guest a question. Are you ready to flow with joy?
Couldn't be better ready. Let's do this.
Okay, you said it's better ready. Let's do it. Okay, guys, so on today's show, we are going to be talking about leadership and management skills. Yes, that's our topic. But before we go into the topic, I would love Mr. Femi Obok Daniels to kindly introduce what he does.
So I'm a media professional. I've done media for 30 years and some television, some print, but mostly radio. In the last 3 decades, I've covered multiple blades of grass in terms of media, particularly radio broadcasting. It started back in the day as your contemporary young show hosts. Back in the day when we used to have duty continuity announcers on radio and on television, newscaster, all of that. And the last decade and a half, I had then gone into sports and also built a personality doing sports, especially with my sports presentation team, the uh, now famous Femi and the Gang through the years. Um, but these days, I still do some radio, but essentially, I manage a radio group, a really vast radio group. The homestead for radio stations like Cool FM, like Wazobia FM, Nigeria Info, Kids FM, Ariwa Radio, which is an all-Hausa radio station in the northern part of the country, Kano, and 14 radio stations now and still expanding. So that takes my time. At least once a week, I get on radio, so I still do what I do, and periodically too, I do the big ones like the now famous "I Beg to Differ" students debate, which happens literally quarterly. So I work as a general manager for our group of stations across the country.
So, what are the good qualities of a leader in your career?
So for me, I think for somebody who's been in a career path where your whole career is talking, you get used to being heard by others. You get used to being the one who turns on the mic. So when you get used to that, you might find yourself talking all the time throughout life. And when you're a leader, the most important attribute that you need to have is being not a talker, not the talker, but the listener.
You spoke literally for about 3 minutes just doing your introduction.
Yes, perhaps 1 minute for every 10 years that I've been in the field, perhaps. And you've done 30 years of radio, perhaps you have the right to speak, to introduce yourself for that long.
I'm just shocked. I don't even know what to say. I'm just looking at you and I'm just like, okay. I think you should just handle the show.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I'd like to flow with joy because it's not every day that I get that opportunity.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So, which is that particular mentor that you always look up to at every time in your life throughout the career since the journey started? Which is the particular mentor you'd always like, okay, I admire this person anytime, any day?
So I lost my principal mentor 2 years ago. My father, great guy. Um, he was the beginning for me, both in terms of life, but also importantly in terms of the earliest motivations. And himself, not a broadcaster necessarily, but he probably should have been. He had all the attributes of a broadcaster, even though he spent his time doing other things. But he taught me everything: how to read, how to speak, how to enunciate, how to. He just provided the pathway. Uh, Maybe he didn't think I was going to go all the way to do broadcasting professionally, but those influences and the encouragement through the years until we lost him in 2022. But beyond my dad, I started my broadcast career in Ibadan. Um, uh, Brilliant names I admired as a kid, and I just wanted to do things like this because they were brilliant and excellent. Names like Yonju Adigbite, names like Nelson Ipaye, back in the day. These men were brilliant. They're totally brilliant. And women like Diola Lagbe, Folashade Ogedegbe, big time producers like Bimbo Lagbe. So these were my earliest motivations. But beyond those ones, on a local um, level, the big hitters, um, nationally, were also there. Who wasn't attracted to radio or television by the likes of Veronica Osawere or um, Ruth Benemizia up here, those people we saw on television back in the day and heard on radio, or the big names like Cyril Stober, John Momo. These men and women were massive inspiration in our line of work, and you could say you constantly um, saw them and heard them, and you told yourself, well, I could do this. So, and look, there are many names off the top of my head, but just these names were like forerunners for my generation of broadcasters. Um, so for me, the ability to listen and just listen because you want to listen. Listen and avoid the urge to retort, to respond. Um, just listen. I think, and there are so many attributes of a good leader, but it all starts with the patience and the fortitude to listen to people. Because when you really get to listen, you hear not only the things people say, but sometimes even more loudly, the things they don't say. Sometimes the the best answers and the loudest message is passed on not through what somebody says, but what they don't say. So listening is important. It's been my style of leadership. And sometimes it might seem, because with listening comes patience. It takes time to listen to people. And what it means is that sometimes you wish the meetings would be shorter, but they are longer because you need to listen. Just listen, let them express themselves. Um, it's just like this thing that we do in professionally, where people say they are doing what do they call it now? Um, so they mix the difference between performance evaluation and what's the other one? There's performance evaluation, and it is quite different uh, from uh, as the other assessment, where you in the when you're assessing people, sometimes you think that it's you telling them what to do, but most people are looking for answers. The answers are there, but if you just told them what to do, they don't develop as much as letting them talk and asking them, what do you think you could do in this instance? It was a critical skill I learned from my older brother when I was young, and I would go with him to with my little problems. A girl says she loves me or sends me a love text. And I'm like, what do I do? And rather than tell me what to do, he'll ask me some pointed questions and ask, what do you think you should do? And I learned over time to develop my critical thinking and analytical skills. And I also try as much as possible to apply it when I deal with subordinates, mostly subordinates, but it also helps me generally, because most of the other time, professionally, I'm talking. Talking is everything I do. Um, so I gain some balance by listening, and it helps me in my leadership with people, because you have to work with people and you have to remember they're human beings first.
So, what is the common word you use all the time that whenever um your team comes around, you'll be like, okay, boss has said this. This is way, it is his word.
I don't know what word. I mean, some of my people will say, let me borrow, in my office, they tend to call me GM. Let me borrow GM's word and say, quick one. Sometimes I don't even know I say this thing. I preface things I want to say by, hi, quick one. Will you be available tomorrow? So quick one is one. If I could say another, it will probably be, I see. I see. I tend to do that. Well, people have told me I tend to do that a lot. There are a few others. I can't reel them off right now. But I just have these few mannerisms here and there that they're just
Comes out of
spontaneous.
your head
Yeah,
or
it just happens depending on the situation. Actually, and then I like to play a whole lot, and I sometimes I use a bit of wit, a bit of sarcasm, play for those who are really close to me. Um, so I laugh a lot, and um, that's it. You know, different mannerisms for different occasions. Actually,
Okay, interesting. So what is the key difference between a leader and a manager?
one is human, the other is a robot. Because you think about it, an app could probably manage better than you, um, or AI could manage things, organize things. But a leader is somebody who does just that, leads. A leader is somebody who is willing to sacrifice their own personal comforts um, in the interests of the group, in the interests of the community. And what that means is that sometimes you stay longer than you have to. You pick calls late at night. You, um, the people can. come to your door uh, when you're trying to have family time. It's just the nature of the job. But even more importantly, a leader is that person who sets the example and who who helps with the load as much as you can. You set the example not merely by the things you say, but by the things you do. So if you are going to lead me into battle, you might as well be able to wield a sword and a spear, or whatever. Um, and if I know that I'm going to battle with a leader who can wield a sword and who has a good arm with a spear, then I have a lot more confidence. Um, but the manager um, merely tells people what to do, and the manager might be great at what they do and all of that. But my philosophy, as always, and I mentioned it earlier on, is that if you are a leader of people, first and foremost, you are leading human beings before you are leading professionals. So I don't see people as broadcasters or um, journalists or presenters first and foremost. I see them first as a human being, as human beings. And then what they are professionally becomes an added attribute. So I always bear that in mind when I deal with people. And I feel that that's the major difference between leadership and mere surface management, which is why I said the manager is a robot, or could be a robot, or could be AI, could be an app, could be anything. And for you to really be a human being, then you have to treat people like they are human beings, especially the people who look up to you, people who you lead to battle, whatever the battle is, whether it's real war or whether it's professional excellence that you're trying to achieve, or whether it's production capacities you're trying to build, or whether it is some other project that you want to do. The leader is that person who leads the way, shows them how to do it, who listens, and who shares both in the successes of others, and also shares in the pain and their disappointments too.
How do you ensure your team stays productive and engaging?
Well, the same principles I apply to my teams are the ones that I apply to myself. I'm a bit restless. I get bored pretty quickly. So routine bores me. Um, and there's something I often say to my teams. We have to keep reinventing ourselves, because it doesn't matter how good you are at something. If you do not go the extra mile to do something in a new way, in a different way, then time and circumstances overtake you. So in my line of work, um, I'm constantly pushing the envelope. Sometimes people have asked me in the past, why do you feel the need to do so much? Um, I'll take my current workplace. When I was employed 15 years ago now, so 14 years ago, at a time when I had broken out on my own. I had done professional work for about 15, 16 years, and then I had broken out on my own. And due to a number of factors, I had the opportunity of joining my group, which is Cool FM, which was Cool FM at the time. But I remember vividly saying at the interview that I didn't want to be a presenter. I didn't want to do music presentation. The only thing I wanted to do was read the news, and I didn't want to do anything more than the news. Um, and I remembered that, okay, I was told, okay, if it's just the news, fine. So I signed up. My first ID card, my designation was newscaster, which was all I wanted to do. I got to the station, I started reading the news. Um, I used to be a pretty good newscaster too. Um, and I brought my own flavor to news delivery. It was fun, but I soon got bored. And when I got bored, I wondered, what could I do? So I went to one of my superiors and said, because I didn't want to do music, I said, could I set up sports for you? And I was told, no, don't. And then a combination of events happened where we had trouble in one of our locations outside of Lagos in Port Harcourt, and I was told to go there and sort some of the problems out. And I was supposed to be there for 1 month, but when I got there, I had to do a feasibility study, and the reports that they gave me said sports was critical to the audience. The station had had a sports program a long time ago, and it had died. And
hold on, is this where the journey of Femi and the gang started?
Yes, actually, that's where it started. And the head of station in that location in Port Harcourt told me that sports, the ratings are down because we don't have sports. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. If sports is so critical to the Port Harcourt audience, let's do sports. The first question I asked him is, who can you get me? Who knows his way around? Who is very good with sports? I can flow with. I'll do it myself. And I was introduced to China Acheru, who became my first buddy in line of work. The rest is history. And so sports started.
How many years ago?
This was in 2010, late 2010. We started, because I was there, I made that trip in October, early in October. And I started the sports show that same October. By December, the sports show won the best sports program on radio in Nigeria. By December, yes, less than 3 months. And at that point, that was it. To the point where my employer, first, my boss, whom I had asked earlier on whether I could do sports in Lagos, had heard me and called me. What are you doing? We didn't send you to do sports and all of that. But then the national awards came and all of that. And then my employer said, what are you doing in Port Harcourt? Come back to Lagos, come set up sports. So I came back to Lagos, and that was how Femi and the Gang was born. So to that question, how do you motivate your team? Go the extra mile. Don't be satisfied with just the basics. Go the extra mile. At some point, in my sojourn with the Cool FM group, I even floated a paper, Spot On. It was a big deal at the time. Unfortunately, events overtook it. Social media demands meant, a physical paper was losing its steam. But it was great while it ran. And it's always been my story. So I motivate my team by encouraging them to do the extra. You see, the problem with doing just the basics, and most of us fall into that trap. The money isn't much. How much are they paying me? Well, I can't kill myself, Gary. You see, when you go through your career that way, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, you get used to doing just the bare minimum. A day will come when you break out on your own and you want to give your all to your own thing. But you've gotten used to doing the bare minimum. So even with your own thing, you would only do the bare minimum and you will struggle to succeed. So whatever the circumstances are, whether the conditions are great or not, do the extra work. You are building yourself and training yourself. And I try to pass that message across to my team. And I've also been privileged. The people I've worked with closely through the years, they've been brilliant in their career paths and all of that. Not necessarily because I advised them or because I was the leader, but because, they themselves see firsthand how high up you could go if you go beyond the bare minimum.
Interesting. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So, what is the most valuable lesson you've learned from managing people?
Most valuable, most valuable, most valuable. It's a lot of lessons. I don't know how to
Yeah, just say
categorize,
one. You don't want to say
to
much.
prioritize. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned from leading people is that at best, you know little. As a leader, you tend to think you know a lot. Years' experience may have bestowed on you a lot of knowledge. But some of the most humbling lessons will come from some of the most how do you say it now? I used to do an exercise. Um, I don't do it as much as I did. I try to do it sometimes, but I used to do it regularly, where I would call the interns. Usually in an organization like ours, the interns are usually viewed as the bottom of the rung, and most of these interns are students still in school, and you look at them and say they don't know anything, but it's been incredible just getting these young people in the room and just listening to them and asking them questions. And um, when you encourage them to say their minds, you know, some of the uh, some of the feedback that you get from these young ones uh, can propel the vision to levels you don't anticipate. And why is that? It's because for many of these people, they are closer to your consumers that you're trying to reach, closer to them than your management team. In media, for instance, there's a mistake we make. We call ourselves media gurus. So we lock ourselves in a room and then we begin to make decisions regarding what kind of program the audience wants to listen to. And while we are sitting there as media experts, we leave the most important person out of that room, the audience. So you're like, oh, do this program in the morning at 12, you do this. Professionally, it works, it always works. But nobody is asking the audience you are cooking that soup for, whether they want you to add a little more salt, or whether they want you to add, what do they call this local thing? In Yoruba, they call it Iru. In Hausa, they call it Dawa Dawa. What do you call it now?
Locust.
Yes, locust beans, you know. And you're like, locust beans is great in soup, and you put it there. The only problem is you didn't ask the person who consumed the soup. The person was probably allergic to locust beans. So, what's the point I'm making? For me, so our interns are the closest thing to the audience by talking to them and by giving them the comfort of being able to say their mind. You could hear things that nobody else in your management team will tell you, and they, because they are consumers themselves. If they think your radio station sucks, pardon my French, they will tell you so. That what do you think? Nobody's listening to you, and then you can take those corrections and go. So for me, the most important thing I've learned, I think it comes back to listening, but it is knowing that other people know more than you do. For me, that's my most important lesson. It's not by age, it's not by the years you've put in. There are always other people who know as much as you and who know some extra. So it's humbling for me, and I carry that everywhere I go, and I don't kid myself. If I started training somebody on the job today, I imprint on that person the need for them to surpass the quality I have at this moment when they are learning from me. Um, and it just so happens, so happens that I have had so many examples of taking somebody, somebody taught them, and a few years down the line, they are the best in the country. Whether it's a presenter, football commentator, or analyst, and all of that. And I take pride in doing that. Not necessarily not being the best, but raising the best. So it's part of the lessons I've learned on the job. Others know more than you, and others have abilities that are greater than yours. Know that and know peace.
You're not the only one great.
No, no.
Beautiful. I want to ask you something. Would you want to describe yourself in 3 words? If I'm to say Femi is this, what do I say Femi can do? Just describe yourself in 3 words.
Hmm. Well, in 3 words. Well, Femi can relate.
Mhm.
Femi can relate. 3 words now.
Hold on. Your name should not be part of it now. Why are you trying to cheat here? Is it because you're way older? We are the Gen Z generation.
You said I should do 3 words.
No, you're trying to be smart here.
Okay.
Femi, no. The first word is supposed to be relate, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's really 2 more words.
Okay. So maybe I should make that Femi is relatable,
Mm-hmm.
understanding,
Mm-hmm. And humble. Should I add that to it?
and humble.
Because in your last answer, you gave
Humility.
humanity or humility.
Yes. For me, humility is, I think humility is my biggest strength. Learn to, I've learned to laugh at myself and not take myself too seriously. And it has helped me. Just be humble. Even God is humble. You don't think God is humble?
Of course. Yes.
God is humble. So if God is humble when he doesn't have to be, he doesn't need to be, and you couldn't do anything about it anyway if he decided not to be humble. So who are you? So yes, humility is important. If I flipped it, it will be humble. I think I am humble. I was raised in that way, and it's being humble is not being uh, uh, it's not being coy or anything. I'm very strong-willed and stubborn, you know. Uh, but when I say stubborn, I'm pretty opinionated. But I'm very good at putting my opinions aside and saying, "Is this thing you want to do? I don't think it will work." And you're like, but that's how I want to do it. Okay, try it. There's another way you could do it, and you're like, but I feel this way. Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. I know you're going to come back to my way. But I'm always eager. And I always tell people, give me the superior argument. It doesn't matter what I think. If you give me a superior argument, we'll try your way. Let's see. I won't sabotage it. I will hope it works. But if it doesn't work, you can always go back to my way.
Come on, come on. Interesting. So, what is that particular thing you hate most? That you don't like people doing
In life,
in life, be it in general.
hypocrisy. For me, it's always been hypocrisy. Hypocrisy because I can befriend even the devil himself. If he would just introduce himself to me as the devil. And I know, you know.
I know someone that used to say that.
You know, I can deal. I mean, some people, and I'm talking about family, they're like, why are you like this? Why are you? I used to have a friend. She's also a colleague in this line of work. And she doesn't understand why I am so. It's like, Femi, you are too accessible. Why are you so accessible? Um, I'm accessible because I can deal with people. I can deal with horrible people. All I just ask is if you're horrible. So let's say I meet you now and you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Joy. I'm an armed robber. Okay, I don't always carry arms, but I'm a petty thief. I take things. Okay, pleased to meet you, Joy. I know I have to keep my phone, carefully, uh, so that you don't get tempted to take it. And I can live with you for the next 10 years, the next 100 years.
So how do you deal with me so that in order for me not to steal from you, at least along the line, I know I have to change?
Yeah,
Because I
hope.
feel if you're able to do that,
You,
something in me would tell you
y-
this is a
yes,
good person.
yes. Well, gradually. So the first thing is I would take it as part of my responsibility to give you the soft landing. For instance, it's a case of kleptomania. You know what kleptomania
Yeah.
is? Some people take things impulsively
Mm-hmm.
that they don't
You
need.
don't.
You know, um, you have 100 million in your account and you're stealing somebody's ice cream or something. You could buy the whole ice cream place, but you know, and we've seen kleptomaniacs before. And understanding, which is why I hate hypocrisy. So if I understand what the problem is, I know, okay, this is how to deal. This is how to help this person. This person is going to take it anyway, whether they want to do it or not. So take it out of the way. So let's say it's not kleptomania. It's just maybe pretty low on morals or values. And then when in a tight spot, you will do anything, including taking things that don't belong to you. Um, then if I'm in your space, I can say, how do I make sure you don't lack? How can I share what I have with you so that you are not compelled to come and steal it? Um, and if it's a case of it's just a weakness, then the question becomes, what can I do to give you strength and help you accomplish accomplish what might be your aim, the aim of not doing that? Because
You're actually preferring a solution along the line.
yes, most certainly, and most of it comes from just listening to people. So it's the hypocrisy part that really gets at me. Don't tell me you are what you're not. Um, don't just come clean. So hypocrisy is my major put off, and I try not to be a hypocrite. Sometimes hypocrisy is tempting. Uh, you are you say this, you do that, and it's not always easy because first we all have a natural human tendency to make mistakes and uh, to falter or to fall short of standards and requirements. Some of them self-set, but you just cannot meet them. So there's a human front to things. But most importantly, just try and be much of yourself and be what you are. You know, come clean with your hands, and I'm good. I can deal with it, whatever your baggages are.
So we've come to the end of the show. We're about to go. But before we go, I want to say you've been in the media house for a long time. So how are you able to deal with the fame, the popularity? How are you able to withhold everything and still have time for family, still have time for yourself, and you're able to deal with it, and you still have your sanity? Because I know this kind of job is a whole lot. It's not easy. So how are you able to deal with everything?
So I must confess to you, it's easy for me to look back now and say, oh, I do this, I do that. But the truth is, the earliest years were very turbulent. I was, I was just a kid when I started my journey in the media, and after the first 2 years, which was the years of training, came 3 years that were the years of exposure. Um, at a time, I lived in a city, a big university city in Ibadan, and at that time, there were just 2 television stations and 2 radio stations. I was on one of the two. So there was NTA and the state TV station, BCOS. There was Radio Nigeria and there was the state radio station, BCOS. And at some point, I became the most famous voice, the most famous face in a span of about a year of joining them. And that was my life for 3 years. And those were the most chaotic um, years of my life because it was tough dealing with the sudden fame. And I was still a student in university. I struggled quite a bit. I would skip classes because, you couldn't even show your face in school without feeling that you are some celebrity, feeling mobbed, it was tough. And then as a young guy, I had to deal with the girls as well. Pretty scattered. Um, but after those 3 years, I told myself not one thing. I told myself I will never do television again until I'm married. I will never do television. I will hide behind radio so that nobody knows me. Um, uh, but today, even radio has changed. Radio is very visual now, so there is no hiding place. Yeah. So from that experience, I learned a few tricks. Keep it low. But the biggest trick I learned, which I've put out over the years, is I surround myself with others. I constantly, throughout my career, I've constantly raised an army of people. So it doesn't matter where I work. If I had a show, in a matter of months, I would bring in people who are not necessarily on the payroll of the organization, but who have talent, who I can train. And most of these people take some of the limelight. So I get my piece. And then when I've trained them and they're that good, I take the back seat and watch them flourish. Because in truth, some people enjoy the limelight. I don't. Okay. So I spent more time trying to be professional, be at the back and push others into the limelight, give them a chance.
And you work behind the scenes.
Yes, I always love that. So, and that has helped me cope because I'm a very private person. I don't like being here, there, and everywhere.
Your Instagram says it all.
Yes, and it works for me. My Instagram.
There is nothing about Femi or Daniel on Instagram. Just the last time you actually posted on social media, I think that was like years ago, like 2 years back. And you just like give clips about Femi and the gang. There's nothing.
There was
I understand the privacy.
There's a new post. I was surprised at how it was accepted. I was just sitting in the office. It was one of those days I was really tired. And it was, there are some days in the office that are just emotional, whether by virtue of just seeing things in people's faces that are not spoken. They don't have to say it, but you could tell that people are going through a lot, especially at this time where the country, I don't know what to say about the country, and it's tough for people. And you've had those kind of conversations, and sometimes I just run away from my chair. So I went outside the reception door and sat on the floor, literally just sat on the floor. I was on the phone, and some of the colleagues they saw me through the glass door. Of course, they could see me. I couldn't see them. And I didn't know that on the other side, they were taking pictures of me just sitting there. And so I eventually posted that, which is my most recent post. I think it's from some few weeks back, if I'm not mistaken. It was
on Instagram.
On Instagram, yeah. Actually, it was still about that same period where we were. I was hosting the I Beg to Differ national tournament. So I posted it, and I just posted. Somebody asked me to post it, and I just said, okay, I'll post it. And I was surprised that I was surprised at the reception. Yeah, but you're right. I try, you'll see a few photos of me and family doing stuff, but essentially, I love my privacy a whole lot. Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm also a private person, so I can tell.
Yeah, we're kindred spirits. We probably should spend more time together.
Yeah, I understand. We've come to the end of today's show. It's an honor having you. Thank you for inviting me, or thank you for accepting the invitation. I'm grateful.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it. It's a privilege to be able, for once,
I admire you.
To flow with joy.
Yeah.
Both literally and figuratively. Yeah.
I'll say one thing before we go. I literally admire you. Secretly I admire you at how well reserved you are, how you carry yourself, and how you relate with your team, like as if you're part of them, or like you guys are just friends. The way you talk, you don't behave like a boss.
You are far too kind.
Yeah.
My philosophy, and I tell people, by the time you are not supposed to even know that you have a boss. By the time you are compelled to know that I am your boss, something is already wrong. I don't want to be your boss. I'm nobody's boss in reality. I like to be like a team lead or team captain, whatever it is. But most importantly, it's important to me that people don't see me. I don't need to be seen. I don't need to prove any point to anybody. And I believe that both those who work with me and those who I report to understand that that is my nature. That's my style of leadership. I don't like micromanaging unless something is seriously wrong. So it's my philosophy, and I just hope that at the end of the day, there is no ogre anywhere.
Keep being you.
Thank you. Can I just say one final advice?
Yes, to the audience.
So, let me look straight into the camera.
Yeah.
And I'm a dad of 4 amazing young boys, and I tell them the same thing that I tell those I work with whenever I have the opportunity. You see, there are 2 sets of things in life. One is the things you like to do. The other, the things you have to do. Understand the difference between the two and prioritize the things you have to do over the things you like to do. Sometimes I do what,
Sorry, I'm interrupting. That hits my soul.
So like I often tell people, sometimes I do what I like to do. Other times, and most times, I do what I have to do. At every point, I'm grateful I have something to do. But because I do what I have to do, I have more time to myself to do what I like to do. So just focus on what you have to do now, so that you can have more time to do what you really like to do.
Beautiful. Guys, we've come to the end of today's show. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. I'm going to see you in my next show. And please make sure you just drop your comment in the comment section. If you love this video, support us by sharing it, subscribing, and liking it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Joy.